So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets.
Let's talk about self-talk. How bad, if you were doing this, and this would be a great actionable item. And this is probably, I'm going to come back to this of like, where do you start with all this stuff? But it would be an interesting scorecard, especially if like maybe there's parents on here with juniors, is to go play golf in a tournament or something that matters, or some, maybe it all matters, and see if you can count how many times you say something negative about yourself in the midst of a round. I bet you it's a lot. Now, the problem with that is that in your brain, the way that your brain creates memory is through moments in your life of high emotional value, right? Moments where there's a ton of adrenaline and a ton of feelings and emotions. That stores a memory in your brain. So when you hit a bad shot and you tie emotion to that bad shot, what are you doing? You are storing a memory. And then what is your self-perception of you as a golfer due to that memory? It's that you're trash. So now, even though that you might feel like in your conscious mind that you're good, at the underlying core of who you are as a being, you feel your inner subconscious mind is going, I'm not a good golfer. I am not worthy to play good. So you have to basically, the first thing with all of this, right? And Sean Fee, who are at the golf room here, who is incredible at what he does, right? The first thing that you have to do is you have to realize when, as Sean would say, when the gremlin is starting to talk to you. And you have to know when it's talking to you, right? I always tell the story of like, Aaron and I were working out a couple months ago. And it was tired. It was literally like, tomorrow I'm going to work out at 5:30. I'm not going to get out of here till 11. It's a short nap, just sleep, right? And we went in there and he goes, hey, Kyle, like we're doing a workout. He goes, Kyle, we're going to do benching and this will be the most you've ever benched, right? And I'm not saying this to like puff myself up. I'm just showing this that like as an example, is he goes, we're going to do this as the most you've ever benched. And I go, Aaron, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it today. I'm going to be too tired. And right before that got him out of my mouth, I was like, what in the world? Who the F was that guy? Like, it was so weird to have something say negative that I could understand it. We both captured it. I was like, whoa, like put 10 more on each side. Let's go, right? So the first thing that you have to do with all of this stuff, and this is why I'm trying to draw it to you, the whole thing is to draw awareness that we need to fix these things so that you can play to your max potential, right? And we're going to kind of do this, but I want to show this thing to you. So when you have this tree, and let's just say the tree by God's design, let's just say we'll pick on Dominic, who's back here. Is that all right with you? So Dominic, when God created Dominic and named every hair on his head, they said, Dominic, when you were to reach your ultimate potential, bro, the best version of yourself, your handicap could be a +4. Dominic's really good. Are you a +4 already? +1. So let's say +4, maybe +5. Okay. And everyone's unique design is different, right? Dominic might be a +5. My wife, probably a 30. My father, probably a 17. Everyone's different, right? Excuse me. So what happens with this is this tree, let's just pick on my dad. My dad's unique design, he's a 28 handicap, right? He might be on this. Hey, Dad. Okay. His ultimate design could be a 17, right? So now what happens is that if this is the tree and it's like a certain seed, if a seed is built and I give you a seed that has the capability of growing to 17 feet tall, right? But it is in a pot that is small, right? Like if I have a pine tree that could grow to 100 feet tall, but I put it in a little tiny pot, will that tree ever grow to 100 feet tall? No, it will not. However, if I fill the roots with everything that I can do, the tree will grow to its max height that the pot will allow. Okay, so stick with me here. Okay, so the pot represents your skill. So Dominic, this will be tough love. Dominic says, I'm a +1. I want to be a +5. I go, Dominic, the problem is your pot's not big enough. Your swing's not good enough. Which he would agree. We were just on the robot over here. So he goes, I want to be a +5. I go, you got to hit it better, man. Like your swing's not good enough. So the point being is that if Dominic had all these things in line, right? And he had great think box, great play box, great spirit of the game, great adrenaline, great things between the shots, great like self-talk, all these different pieces, right? Matt, we'll talk about some other ones, right? We could say, Dom, you could probably be a +2.5, right? Because that's how big the pot is right now. And he goes, I want to be a +5. I go, the pot has to get bigger, bro. So my dad's a 28, right? If he had everything going for him, he could maybe be a 21, 22. If he had all these things, like if he was playing and he had perfect balance and like perfect tempo and his tension awareness, like he was really aware of his body and he was like getting over shots and he was really dialed in and he was making committed swings and like his self-talk was really good and he was like master of variability as best as he could. He could be a 22, but he goes, I want to be a 17. I go, you got to make the pot bigger, right? And this is where you guys all get it wrong, right? Not to point fingers, but this is what happens, is that when in the winter time and kind of in the summer, but mostly in the winter, what we are doing at the golf room and the golf room everywhere is we are expanding the pot. We are making it so that your skill is better. Then in the summertime, we are trying to work on all these things like think box, play box, adrenaline management, like pre-shot routines, like tension, like all these things so that we can have the plant grow to as high as it possibly can get with the size of pot that you currently have. Because if I have a really, really big pot, but I don't put water and nutrients into the system down here, the tree still doesn't grow, which is why you have players on tour. This is a funny story. And he actually would probably find this funny. So if you know him, you can, it's a funny story. I grew up not idolizing, that's a strong word. I grew up really, really liking Grant Waite's swing. If anyone knows Grant Waite, right? He's a teacher now, he played on tour, but he was known as just a range rat. And we're playing an event together, and it's the first time I ever saw him. He's on the range, and I go to Les, I go to Les because she's caddying for me. I go, sweetheart, that's Grant Waite. Like, I've looked at this guy swing hundreds of thousands of times. And I go, I'm going to go hit balls next to him. And I'm hitting and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's golf ball sounds way different off the face than mine. Like, you ever hit balls and like you look behind and you're like, who's this guy? Right? So he does this. And I sit there and then he walks. I can see it right now. And he walks over here and he tees off in the 10th hole. And I kind of sit there and I look at him and I'm just watching him because I'm like, oh, this guy's probably going to shoot 56 today. This guy doesn't ever miss a shot. Sets up, pulls out driver, blocks it 90 yards right into a house. And I'm like, oh my God, how does that golf swing miss? It misses because his tempo and timing and tension are off. Right? So his timing got off and he doesn't hit the planet. Which is why you have a guy with a great swing. His pot is really big, but he can never get the tree to grow to its max height because he didn't get out of his own way because these things aren't in line. You know, like it's funny, like we post these things on Instagram, like course management, and those videos go ridiculously viral, right? Like ones that like 1 million views like from a week ago. And it's funny because I'm going through it and I'm going through it super slow. I'm like, okay, how's your lie? Where do you want to land it? Okay, it's 140, 7 off the right, says a minute. And I'm going through it. It's like, you know, I got to do it in 90 seconds. So it's taking a minute. The guys are like, gosh, this takes forever. When I'm playing golf, that takes like 5 seconds. But the point is the guy who's mocking on that thing and he goes, this takes too long. The reason that guy sucks is because he doesn't do that stuff. And he plugs it in the bunker and he's like, I think I need a lesson. It's like, no, man, you don't. Like, you just need to ask another question. Or you sit there and we kind of, one of these people, the other one would be like, another one would be nutrition. We talk about this with the juniors all that. This definitely goes for all of us, right? Actually happened to me today, as a matter of fact. It's like, you're playing good, and then on 14, bam, like right into the pond. And you go, where did that come from? I need a lesson. You go, no, man, you haven't eaten in 6 hours. How about a granola bar? Right? Like, you have no nutrients in your body. Because think about it. What you're trying to do, when I have that little focus band thing, right? The green thing. Okay. This is why it's all very, very important. And I'll kind of start to tie this into a bow, right? When I go into that green and I go into my motor cortex, that motor cortex processes 11 million messages a second versus the prefrontal cortex, which is 40 messages a second. 11 million versus 40. 11 million versus 40. 40 is logic. That is like the dude that stands over the ball and says, okay, I need to feel like my weight's left, right arm soft, hands in, club out, keep it steep in the backswing, shift to my lead foot, drive, lower my arm, show the money, swivel my wrists, and then finish with balance. That's logic, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to play in the motor cortex. The motor cortex is almost like, think about it like when you play video games, like you're there, but like you're not there, right? So the motor cortex, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to learn how to pay attention to an intention for 1 second, which sounds ridiculous, but it's so hard because you stand over the golf ball and right before you do, like this has happened to me at the US Open. This was the one bad shot. Went through all my routine, did my stuff, and I walk up and I go like this. And then this cart rolled up, which was the range, which was the rules official. And I get in my setup. I'm like this. I come back and I go, I wonder why the rules official's here. OB, miss it by a shot. Right? So the whole point is that if you're doing all of these things, right, you also have sleep. If you're tired, you get it, right? You also have master of variability. So what I mean by that is the guy today, the pro-am, he has a shot on 9, ball's in the rough, stands over it, hits it, looks at me, and he goes, I just couldn't commit to it. I didn't know what the ball was doing. Because he doesn't know how to have the master of variability, because I don't know if he does this, because that guy never practices those types of shots. What's he do? Hit on mats and ranges. When was the last time that you went to your home club and went to drop balls over in the rough next to the range? Or like worked on side hill lies? When was the last time that you went out to a course at 6 o'clock at night and goofed around with no consequence of where it went? Where you could experiment on all of the things that us at the golf room or the golf room everywhere, where you could experiment with what you're trying to do with your swing. And you go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play with a swing guide or stock shot setter. Or like at Worthington Hills here in Clovis, I legitimately hit balls in the fairway with a cone, right? Late at night so no one can see me. But like, when was the last time that you went out and you experimented being a master of variability, right? Like if you have this, I hit a 9 iron 152. I hit an 8 iron 165, right? When was the last time if it were speaking of me, that you practice 157 8 iron? 157 yards versus 165 on a golf course is a really, really big difference. Right? Now, everybody's at different levels, but like knowing how far you truly hit your clubs and you carry them, that would be like master variability. All of these things play in. And when you're doing this, when we're doing this and you guys come to the golf room and you do an experience with me, or you do an experience with one of my guys, like the mini experiences, or you're working with a coach, or you're getting a lesson, or you're doing a playing lesson, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? We're always going to say, how's your lie? Oh, good. You're on a tee box. Got it. We're still going to ask, where do I want to land it? What's the loft or the trajectory? Like, what's the wind? Okay, what's the club? And then we're going to say, do you got it? You're going to say, yes, I got it. Then we're going to say it's time to get into your state and see it before you hit it. Because you're trying to get into a state. You're trying to get all these things in line so that essentially you can have a good play box and be mindful over the ball to hit a good shot. Listen, for you to play your best golf over the next month, and this is coming from a swing coach, it's not going to be because your swing changes. It's going to be because you get comfortable in your own skin. Because you are over the golf ball and you are like, I'm just relaxed. And the only thing I'm thinking about is like making my shoulder soft. That's it. And what you pay attention to, the intentions you pay attention to, there's literally 500 million of them. It's like food, right? Some of them you'll like, some of them you won't like, right? Like I hate cucumbers. Tom, you like cucumbers? Oh, he doesn't like cucumbers either. You guys might like cucumbers. It doesn't make you bad. I just don't like them. So what I mean by that is like, I like the feeling of counting over the ball, literally counting 1, 2. You could go, that's distracting. That's okay. You could go, I really like the feeling of like softness in my shoulders. I really like the feeling of softness in my, like making a soft, consistent grip pressure. I like to have the feeling of seeing the ball flight in my mind's eye. I like to see the ball flight falling into the hole. I like to see the swing of a perfect golf swing in my brain. I like to feel the ground. I like to hear the birds. I had a swing thought where I was chewing on a tee, but it kept me present. So when you're paying attention to an intention, you're trying to pay attention to one of the 5 senses: sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. And nowhere in that does it say, recite the master plan in every drill that we've taught you. Right? And so the whole point is that when you do this, is the goal is that for you guys that have been with us for a while, and if you're not with us taking lessons, then my question with hard love is I'd say, are you even sure that your pot's expanding? Because like you might be thinking you're doing it, but little do you know you're doing something and there's like a gigantic hole down here where all the water spills out and it's not actually allowing it to grow, right? That's where you need a guide. Like you need a gardener to help expand the pot, right? Every single player playing in the Memorial this week has a coach, which means we should probably have coaches. I have a coach. Dom has a coach. Dom literally sends videos to our coaches. And he helps write the books for this thing, right? So like we all need help. And that's okay. But to think that we can cure it with a YouTube video is not real, right? So the pot is what we work on in the winter to expand the pot, to expand our skill. And then the summer is where like people like Sean, so on and so forth, they get all these things in line so that now the tree can grow to its max height. And now what ends up happening is my dad, who's a 28, he gets all these things in line and the tree grows and he gets to a 22 and he goes, man, that was fun. So rather than walking off the golf course going, I should have shot this, he's saying, I shot 90. I probably should have shot 95. Instead of saying, I shot 95, I should have shot 90. Right? There's a difference. Instead of like, I woulda, coulda, shoulda, it's like, man, I like outkicked my coverage there. And then he goes, I want to get better. I want to get to a 17. I go, you got to make the pot bigger, bro. And that's what the winner come in. That's where the winner comes in. Because the winner is where you do all the technical stuff. Cones, noodles galore, like make it hard. It should be hard. It should feel weird. If it doesn't feel weird, you're not changing, right? So the goal is that you have to have some self-reflection. You have to have some self-reflection. If you got to say, what are the things that I'm not doing? And just start with one. You go, you know what? He talks about why land loft club. I think my think box sucks. So start there. And then you go, you know what? Like, I'm constantly like saying, like, I'm going to actually think my self-talk's bad. I'm going to kind of reflect and see how many times I say something negative and then try to counteract it and say something positive.
Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets.
We did a gremlin yearbook inside of our academy where the kids drew their gremlin. These are like 17-year-old kids. They drew gremlins and they said, this is what the gremlin says. When it says this, I'm going to counteract it with this. Right? That was all Sean, right? Like you've got to first recognize it, right? Or maybe you go, my play box. My brain is going 1,000,000 miles an hour over the golf ball. I had a guy last weekend from New York. That's the way his was. His play box, think box was great. Play box, a disaster. Right? You could just see the wheels spinning. It was like a CNN ticker above his head that's like, I have no confidence. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no confidence. I have no confidence. And it was like, you could just see the bad shot before it even happened. Right? So now, and when you do this, like inside Stock Shot Club, like for the Instagram guys, like the people on this side, they've got you guys have all the resources. Like there's videos on all the stuff, like the course management secrets, mental mastery course, right? Like all of this stuff that you guys can have access to start chipping away so that we can build the plant to make it go as high as it possibly can and have you reach your potential, right? And if you're one of those people that are like, you know what, like I've been going at this by myself and like trying to navigate this thing, but I'm really, really passionate about wanting to get better, then maybe you join and like, you know, like maybe we weren't going to do this, but maybe Don, we drop in the link of like the VIP program and then we walk beside you and like we help create your routine for you. And we create like tempo stuff for you and all these practice plans and like fitness stuff and like lessons and FaceTime lessons and like everything that you need to make the plant reach as high as you possibly can. Right? So like, if you guys want to do that, maybe we can put that in and you guys can click the link or save it, or, you know, we can send an email out. I'm sure there's some email about it. So it's just something that's near and dear to my heart, because it's so near and dear to my heart because of the fact that I didn't get this as a player, and God's got me exactly where I'm supposed to be. But if I would have actually realized this when I was 28 or 29, I'm not saying I would be, but I think that there's a better possibility that I actually could have been playing this week rather than hanging with you. I love hanging with you, but I'm just saying that I always thought that making the pot bigger was the solution. I thought it was more cones, more noodles, more technique, and it's just not the truth. There's a time for that. Don't get me wrong. But for you to play at your ultimate potential, you need to make sure that all of the things are taken care of, right? So you've got a good spirit of the game. You've got a good think box. You've got a good play box. You have a good memory box, like how you store memories after. Your self-talk is good. In between shots, you have a strategy for that. You understand how to manage your adrenaline. You know how to understand mastering their variability. You have game plans of how you're going to tackle a golf course, right? Indecision on a golf course where you're like, should I aim at that tree or that one, right? Like all of those things matter so that you can play up to your level of potential. It's not just about how you swing a 7-iron. There's more to it than that. And this allows you to ultimately reach your potential, which is why this was really important to me. And I appreciate you guys letting me share my thoughts and share my heart, because it's something I'm really passionate about, obviously. So if you guys want, I can take a few questions, maybe on Instagram. They can maybe ask some if you guys have any. When timing your pre-shot routine, what would be a scratch level acceptable amount of deviation in terms? That's a great question. Also, what's the best way to practice this by yourself? Okay, so Fran, this is a good question that I can't give you a objective answer. What I can say is this, from what I know from my knowledge, is that Scott Fawcett has an amazing video inside the Decade program of Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods, it's at the U.S. Open at Bethpage Black, final round. Tiger Woods' routine from the time he basically kind of like starts his practice swings to the time he hits is 15.8 seconds. right? He hits one bad shot on like hole 15. He blocks it right, and it's 16 seconds, 16.1 or something like that, right? So when we're training it for our Elite Junior Academy kids, we try to get them within a half a second. But realistic, I think a half a second would be a good goal, right? I think that what I would do if I were training you, it's probably a little harder to do by yourself. But realistically, what I would be doing is I would set up a camera. Setting up a camera is so easy, right? You can do it on your bag, right? Or one of the little caddies that's behind like a range, and just film yourself, and you just get a point of reference to where you do it. So like when I step or when I start my practice swing, that starts the clock, and then see how good it is. And I would say that everyone's a little bit different. So Fran, like do yours and do 5 shots and time it and like write it on a log and go, okay, that's 12.6, 13.1, 12.8, 12, blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay, I was within 1.5 seconds. That's your new world record. Then do it a couple days later or to the next day and go, if that was 1.5, can I do 1.4? Great job, right? Like you're just trying to beat your own record, but I would probably start with your own standard of what is, right? But the first thing that you need to do is I would ask is, do you have a routine, right? You guys have to understand when you have all of these things, you have to have tactics as to how you are going to tackle each one of these things when they come up. So when you have slow play, what's the game plan? What are going to be your play box sensations that you're going to focus on your driver, your irons, your short game, and your putting? What are you going to pay attention to? Like you need 3 or 4. You're not focusing on all of them. It just means those things are going to move. So when you're not hitting it good, you're not going to change golf swings. You're just going to change intentions. I'm going to go to a 75% balance here, right? So like those are the things that you would be changing. You're not changing your swing. All right. Can you kind of define being committed to a shot? So being committed to a shot is, how could I objectively answer to that? I would say, Dante, that defining a committed shot, I would say that the shot that you are going to exit, if I came to you and I said, what's 5 plus 5? And you go 10. I go, are you sure, man? You sure it's not 9? You go, yeah, man, it's 10. I go, are you positive? You go, yeah, it's 10. That level of commitment that you felt inside your heart of 5 plus 5, that is the level of commitment that you need to have while walking into the golf ball, right? So you have to know what the yardage is, how far it's going to go, and there is no sense of failing. This is where like a sense around all of this stuff, you can make an argument around everything is optimism in the fact that like if you hit a bad shot, you're ideally the natural disposition, like when you hit a bad shot is you go like, that's weird. Compared to like, man, I suck again. Right? Like you want to be, that would be like, that's where you would talk about like self-talk. If someone says, if I'm playing with a guy and he hits a shot and he goes, that's weird, then I know that guy's subconscious is strong. If he's sitting there and he's like, oh, I'm such a degenerate, I suck, man. Then I'm like, oh man, like this guy's self-talk and his memory box is no bueno. Right? We got to work on that. So hopefully that answers, like, you need to be super, super committed, right? And I completely forgot about all this stuff. Well, no, I didn't. Never mind. I did. If your shot is a distance that is between clubs, how do you not change the tempo since it is too short and too long if you use the same tempo? Okay. You change. So one thing that amateur golfers, John, I don't know if you're an amateur, but just in general, is they go, okay, I have a 9-iron that I hit 152 yards. I'm going to swing my 9-iron. And then they go, okay, now I need to hit a 9-iron 142. I'm going to hit it 142. You don't change yardage by slowing swing. You change yardage really 2 ways. One is by shortening hand arc. So instead of going here, I go here. The second one would be like Mitch, who's a really good player here. He usually likes to choke down a little bit more. So that's where you would go to the range, John, and you go, hey, I'm going to shoot the range. The edge of that bunker is 167 yards. That's an 8-iron. I'm hitting 8-irons. And I go, hey, that's a good shot. Good, 167. That's a good shot, 167. You go, now I'm going to choke down 1 inch, and I'm going to make the same swing, same length. You go, 163 yards. Okay. 1 inch down is 4 yards less, right? So that would be one way. The other way would be, which is the way I do it, it's like shortening hand length a little bit. Like I will just shorten my hand length a little bit, and that will take off the necessary distance that I need. So it's almost like a little bit of a clock system. So you go, hey, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, maybe you have like a 10:30, but you kind of do it that. On chipping and looking to get it into the land, 1 to 3 paces on the green, but you are close to the green and the flag is on the other side of the green. I had this chip today. Are you limiting your choice to clubs to wedge and maybe chip putt an 8-iron? What if any constraints or limits would you put the club selection to eliminate potential? What if any constraints or limits would you put on club selection to eliminate potential errors? So, Jeffrey, to your question, the first question in the think box would be what? How is my lie? So let's say, for example, the lie is super down, buried, right? Then that would be, remember, it's 1 to 3 paces unless an emergency. That sounds like an emergency. So you go, I'm going to probably take my 54 and like chop and pop it, and it might land 10 paces on and then roll the other 15. Right? Now, if I'm just sitting there on the front of the green, fairway lie, par 5, a shot that's like basically at the golf room, like this, right? Imagine like the ball's there and I got to chip it to the other side. That would be, hey, that would be where you'd use an 8-iron or 9-iron, right? So it really comes back to the lie, right? And then you would say, based upon the lie, where do I want to land it? The 1 to 3 paces is a rule, right? But don't be too legalistic with it, right? Like there's room for error because you're a player, right? So you want to hit the shot. When you end up hitting a bad shot, should you completely bury the reaction, or should you allow yourself to feel some emotion, since none of us are robots? Great question. So you 100% should feel emotion. Burying it may be worse. So if you watch Jordan Spieth this week, he will hit a shot, and what does he do? He turns to Michael and vents. Oh, man, that thing, the wind grabbed it. Stupid ball, sat down at a divot. This sucks, man. Good, let's go. So he vents it, and then he leaves it, right? So he assesses what happens. He has a caddy, so like he says it all out, and then he's like, all right. And then like when he steps, it's gone. There's nothing wrong with showing emotion to a level of degree, right? You also don't want to be like acting unprofessional or creating a bad image. No one wants to play with the guy or girl that's throwing a temper tantrum. Like no one wants to play with that kid or girl or kid or guy or player or old man, right? No one wants to do that. But there's nothing wrong with showing emotion, and like you do it, you're just like, oh God. But then what happens is the optimism sparks and you sense it. You're like, all right, it's all right. We got this. Let's go. Right. So like you have to be, if you probably don't have a caddy, you have to be your own caddy, to where Jordan would say that to Michael, and then Michael would be like, good, are we done now? And they go, yeah, good. All right, let's go. Right. If he was up there by the chipping green and Jordan's still talking about the shot, Michael would be like, what are you doing? Like, we're here now, man. Like, shut up. Let's go. Right. How do you calm yourself on the first tee and pressure? Great question. So, Mark, there is a great podcast that I'd love for you specifically to go watch on Stock Shot Secrets. Yeah, Stock Shot Secrets. Sorry, I'm getting all these. We have Stock Shot Show, Stock Shot Secrets, Stock Shot Club, Stock Shot Store, Stock Shot Setter. Anyways, we should probably coin the term Stock Shot. Anyways, the whole thing is about your question. So what I did, to give the short answer, I stay at a hotel at a tournament, because that's where I'm going to probably get nervous, 15 minutes away from the course. The 15 minutes away from the course, I am breathing the whole time. Systematically, 6 in, 6 seconds out for 15 minutes. I am then through my warm up continuing to focus on my breathing. When I'm putting before I'm warming up, like as I'm getting ready to go to the rain or to the first tee, because my tee time, let's say it was at 1 o'clock, I'm going to go hit putts at 12:48. I'm going to hit two footers to make sure I see the ball going in. Then as I walk to the hole, I am breathing. Then I'm probably going to eat a banana on the first hole while breathing. The first tee shot, I'm breathing. At the U.S. Open, I told my father on hole 5, I said, okay, looks like the nerves are gone. Hole 5, I had been out there for an hour and 10 minutes. It took me till hole 5 to basically feel my hands. The first tee shot, I'm hoping to make contact. I flare it kind of out right. I'm like, okay, I'm off the tee. Good job. If I didn't feel those, I would question if I should even care. You want to feel nerves. That's okay. You just have to know what are the mechanisms to play with them. But the best thing to do is basically diaphragm or really deep breathing. When you commit, but you have this hesitation, is it a poor etiquette to step away? No, this is great. So, Samuel, when you do this, just make a joke. So what I did it today. I stepped up on a par 3. I was over the ball, and my thing, I kind of go 1, 2, then I circle waggle. I hinge like this, and then I go back. What I did on this one is I went 1, 2, circle waggle like this, came back. Then I took another look, which was that. And I go, sorry, if I hit that, I was definitely shanking it. And then they're like, ha, 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 ha. And then I go through my routine again. So you just got to make a joke. So you go, sorry, guys. If I would have done that, I would have topped it in the water. I would have been hitting another one anyways. So let me just do it again. Right. I don't know if maybe that's not your personality. That's mine. But you just but there's nothing wrong with it. Right. Especially the other thing, too, is that people are like, this takes long. You guys, listen, as a sidebar, the routine should overlap. Right. If I'm playing with Dominic, I don't need to watch what Dominic does. If I'm playing with tour pros, maybe I'm taking a little bit of inventory as to what club they hit. But chances are there's a 98% chance the person you're playing with didn't hit the center of the face. So you're like, they're short of the green with the 7-iron. I think I should hit a 6. It's like that dude just hit it 2 grooves from the bottom and he almost hosel rocketed it. Right? Like, you shouldn't be taking inventory. So, like, if he's over here in the fairway and I'm over here, like, our routines can overlap and we can play really fast, but I can still do it, like, in my state. So, but hopefully that question. Is there anything here? Maybe one more? What's the hardest item in the box? I think the hardest item in the box to get is, the hardest is probably play box, which is the everything. That's like the cop-out answer. Because everything boils down to the moment of impact. So I said this to someone the other day. You could probably get it. Like if I went and played golf and like I didn't have a rangefinder and maybe I was in a crappy mood, my adrenaline was whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like I could really hone in on a play box and like really be settled in and be comfortable in my own skin over the ball. I probably could play pretty good. But if I have a really, really good think box, I'm like, man, I'm going to hit this 152 yards. This is going to be perfect. And I have a bad play box, I play terrible. And that would be for everybody. The whole thing is the moment of truth, right? So like the guy at the free throw line could have everything in line and everything's perfect, but it all comes down to the moment of his concentration of like when the last dribble and he looks at the rim and then gets ready. And if there's a little bit of indecision where he's got, like the sign behind the backboard, he's like, that guy's got my name on the sign. Right? Then he's going to hit a bad shot. So, last question. As a newish golfer, 14 months, how do you manage goals and expectations on improvement? That's a great question, Tyler. So I think that as a newish golfer, welcome, right? But for you, my advice to you is that it's a lot. Breaking a bad habit is hard, but breaking a good habit is equally as hard. So the first thing is, as a new golfer, don't go about the journey by yourself. Like, join the golf room everywhere. If you're in Columbus, come to the golf room. Maybe you are, right? I don't know. But like the level of expectation it's hard in golf because getting good at golf does require practice, right? And I think that's what some guys where it's harder and they're naturally athletic and they're like, I was talking to my buddies the other night. We were watching the crew game. He's like, I don't really want to take up golf because like I'm good at everything else, but I know like when I play golf, I suck and it's going to take a lot of practice and I just don't want to do it. I'm like, I get it. No judgment, right? Like I understand. So I think level of expectation would be the first thing, depending on where you are, Tyler. So you're in Florida. The first thing that I would do is like, I would just say, hey man, can you make solid contact every shot? And then if you can make solid contact, and even if the ball's going squirrely, but it's solid and kind of far, then you can start to bring in the deviation. But like start with making good contact, right? That's kind of where I would piggyback or kind of go with. So, all right, everyone. Well, hopefully you guys hear this. Like I said, there's a million resources for anybody that wants to do like there's that link in the thing that you guys want to like dive more into your game. And like maybe there's not for everybody. This is really for like the committed guy who really wants to get better. Not, you guys are all want to get better, but like this is the committed guy that's like, hey, I want some FaceTime lessons. I want to have a coach in my pocket all the time. I want to see what my body can and can't do. I want to like take my game to the next level. You guys can click that. Weather looks a little rainy, Matt. You guys can click on the link and fill out the thing for the VIP and we can tell you about it, right? And see if that's a good fit for you. It's like the best thing that you could do for your game. It's just a matter if that's what you want. So click on that. It'll be amazing. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it was a long night, but it's something I'm very passionate about. So I appreciate you guys. Love you more than you know. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. And we'll see you guys back here for another episode of the Stock Shot webinar next month. If you're on Instagram, you want to go to stockshotclub.com. You can join these so you can see it next month. And there's a bazillion things that you get inside that. So go check it out. All right. See you, Stock Shot roomies.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Now, as a listener of Stock Shot Secrets, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get better. So if you were to go to stockshotclub.com, I'm going to give you 7 days free access where you can send us your video and we will give you personalized individual attention as to what you need to do so that you can start building stock shots. So just go to stockshotclub.com and register there. We'll give you 7 days free where you can try it. And then if we like it, you can stay inside the Stock Shot Club where we can become your coach and walk with you for your entire journey. Thank you so much. And be sure to go visit stockshotclub.com.